So these are things I had several meetings with the staff, and I said, look, I'm not here to, ask you to do anything out of the ordinary or actually, but if his call bell is on and I go down the hall and you guys are having I call it a town hall meeting. You
Right.
guys are having a town hall meeting with the nurses, and I see several call bells on. That's a problem.
Now, let's talk a little bit about how you managed his care while he was in the rehab, because I know you were extremely detailed in how you managed his care. Let's talk about what you did specifically to just keep track of what was going on and if things were changing and kind of help manage the staff, because that's something that a lot of people struggle with, right? And so it'd be good for them to hear from you, how you approach that, because it might help them if they have a person in the hospital and the rehab right now.
Well, first thing I wanted to manage was like his like PT. So I know he had to do physical therapy, and of course, he wanted me to be in there with him. So I got the guidelines around how I could go in there, and they said at first it was kind of like, well, you really can't go in there, but it was more so I said, well, if it's physical therapy and it's physical, but it's also mental too as well because he had a brain injury, so to say. I
Right.
said, shouldn't he be in a state where he's the most comfortable from a mental standpoint, and if having me be there would help him perform better or do things, I should not be there. And they agreed. One thing they were worried about was that he may not perform as well because I'm there, and I may say, hey, he's going too far, he's going this. I said, I'm a bystander. I'm just there as like his support or his, I'm like his cheerleader, sort of say. I'm not in here to get in the way of anything. So I managed those, and I did make sure sometimes, if it seemed like it was going too much, they're professionals. That's what they do. But if it seems like they're going too much, because sometimes I personal train sometimes too. You can
Okay.
push people a little bit sometimes too much. So I just managed that. Made sure that schedule was okay. Also made that sure that he also like ate before too as well, because they didn't want him to be weak or things of that nature. I
Mhm.
kept a detailed, you could say like a sheet of like all the medications like he took. They would have him like uploaded, but I wanted to make sure that he didn't, take something too much or they just added something random. I would always ask, "What is this?" I would reach out to you as well,
Right.
and ask him too as well. Like, do you normally take this? Where is this? I think also we had to bring in some his medicine from home because he wasn't really too responsive to one of the other medicines, and we got approval for that. So I was just making sure everything was okay as opposed to just being in autopilot. I asked a bunch of questions which probably frustrated him. But I wanted to be detailed as well. Like I said, this is your job, but this is my loved one. I also made sure when it came to like his food prep, he wanted to. I guess they would give him like certain choices, and it was just like if you didn't choose it, they would just give you what was on the menu. So I made sure I would go through the list with them. Hey, what do you want to have this day? Because they would kind of do it like day by day. I got in touch with the staff and I said, hey, can we have a list of what's being served for the week? And we can just make your job easier and just pick out for the week what he wants. Or it may be certain days where I may have to go get some external food that he can eat and just make that day a lot easier. And they appreciated that. So he was able to have his food out for that week, and now he's also prepared to, okay, I'm gonna have this on this day. So if it didn't come, now we're like, I thought it was supposed to be chicken. That was supposed to be this. So now we're putting him in a place where he now knows, he sort of like seeing a schedule in front of him where he's not just in the bed and time is just going by. I think that's one of the things that could just happen. You're just you don't know what day it is, you're just laying around. But if he has a schedule, okay, Tuesday I have this. I mean, I know what date it is, but I know it's Tuesday I'm gonna have this. So gave him a little schedule and something to like look forward to as well, as opposed to just being there. So I just managed
That's
that.
great.
I
Yeah,
managed
that's
that as well.
great because I think what I'm hearing you say is, because the person may, like you say, have lost time,
Mhm.
literally, it's important to get them on a regimen and get them back on a schedule and get them looking forward to certain things on certain days and feeling like they have some control, which is so important. Them feeling like they have some control over what's going happening to them. Because what I found with Dom was that when he felt the most out of control and didn't have control over his decisions or decisions around him or things being done was when he withdrew the most, right? Because it was kind of like, okay, well, anything's going to happen to me anyway. So
Right.
what's the point of me being a part of this existence, really? And so it is important to, if you have a loved one who is especially uh, in the rehab system where they're trying to battle back to where normal was, it's really important for them to feel some sense of control. And you have to pick and choose your battles about what kind of control you can relinquish so that they feel like they're a part of the process.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Now, let's talk about, so we talked a little bit about advocacy. Anything else on the advocacy front that comes to your mind where you kind of had to decide, you know what, I'm going to battle on this one, right? Anything?
Yeah, I think there was one portion where I was doing so much and making their job easier in the rehab to the point where they took that for as a, I guess, like a crutch.
Okay.
And I had to really put my foot down and say, well, I'm leaving on this date. And I need to understand how it's going to be when I leave. Because if I've been doing X, Y, and Z, you know, and I want to see a couple of days of where you guys are actually doing these things before I leave. And I even went as far as canceling a flight and leaving a day later because I wasn't comfortable with them actually doing their duties and their tasks. Because I think one of the workers said, well, why can't his son do it? And that's I had to like all about the positive mental attitude. I had to I had to I had to switch around. I think that's when I contacted you and I said, there's a reason. I said you got to look at the situation. If I wasn't in the situation that I wasn't currently, number one, I wouldn't have been here that long.
That's long.
Number two, you don't know anything could happen. I'm not a medical profession. I'm not in the medical profession. So I would have to leave and go back and, handle things. I may be back, but I need to understand that he'll be taken care of. And at that moment, I didn't feel like that. Simple things as in, having his call bell be on
Mm.
for 30, 35 minutes. I said, what if I wasn't here? Like, what if it was
Wow.
an emergency? So these are things I had several meetings with the staff. And I said, look, I'm not here to, ask you to do anything out of the ordinary or actually, but if his call bell is on and I go down the hall and you guys are having I call it a town hall meeting. You
Right.
guys are having a town hall meeting with the nurses and I see several call bells on. That's a problem, because and I said this is how lawsuits happen.
Right.
People get hurt. And you think about it, you got a grown man in the bed. He's gonna try to go to the restroom. And usually it was to go to the restroom.
Right.
He's not gonna just sit there and wet himself. And that's when the fall risk comes into play and all these different things. So I wanted to make sure that he's okay. The fact that I had to walk him to the bathroom because the call light was on for 35 minutes is unacceptable.
Right.
So I really had to put my foot down when it came to like procedure and who's supposed to do what. Now the night staff was a lot better,
Hmm.
and she kind of took care of. I think she didn't know my mom personally, but I think she was from Liberia as well, and
Okay.
I felt comfortable with her just from having a conversation when I came there. I was doing the things, and she kind of was like, no, sit down, rest, and do this. And she took over and did her job, as opposed to the other way where they saw me doing it and they would
Mm.
just let me do what I have to do. And that says a lot about people as far as like characteristics. If I come in and someone's doing my job for me, they don't have to. I have two options. I can say, no, this is my job. Let me handle. You rest, you take care, or I can just let them do it. And
Right.
on the other side, when you come in and see somebody doing that's where I see successful people, succeed. The other side is just, but that's a
Yeah.
different topic.
That's a great point. So again, you were you found it important to come in, understand the process first, do the process yourself, and then try to allow them the opportunity to do the process and see that it was being done to your liking, right? Before you could remove yourself to go back to what you needed to do. And typically that's what caregivers have to do. They come in, they're thrown into a situation, they have to learn really quickly. And after they've learned, they have to do. And then at some point, they have to find areas where they can kind of extract themselves to allow for independence of their loved one and for other people to help so that they can keep doing what they need to do to keep everything functioning, right? And so that essentially is what it sounded like happened with you. Now, emotionally, how did you feel when you had to leave?
There was a sense of, I guess, like void or detachment, which was
Mm.
weird because normally it's like, oh, I'm leaving home, I'm leaving away from my parents, I'm going away.
You're running away.
And I think that came from there was 2 I guess there was 2 feelings. There was, a little bit of worry just from how I would under the circumstances that I was leaving or what
Right.
I was leaving, behind. I didn't trust them to do their job. That was just point blank. I didn't trust them to do the
Okay.
job. And I also understood that, like, my sister, like, there wasn't anybody that could be there as much as I could.
Mm.
So I didn't want him to feel a void as well. Because even I think he even mentioned one point where I know he didn't want me to leave, and he said mentioned even coming to Georgia with me. So I think for me, removing myself, I was very on I guess a little bit on edge, even at like that flight back home. I want to make sure I checked up on them and FaceTimed them and we talked, a lot. I think as soon as I landed, I FaceTimed and or called him. And I think I was a little bit so removed that I couldn't wait to get back to make sure he was okay.
Wow.
And that was different for me. That was weird. I kind of was like, I felt like I was home and I was, doing all these things, but somebody, back home needed me, more. And I tried to do everything that I could prior to even leaving, even to, I got him some to drink and hydrate more, which actually helped him out. But I was kind of like torn a little bit to say the least.